Imagine you're taking the SAT exam and you come across a quadratic equation. It might seem tricky, but what if I told you there is a simple way to solve quadratic equations in simple steps? Quadratic equations appear often on the SAT, and understanding how to solve them makes a huge difference. In this video, you will learn about finding the roots of a quadratic equation, the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation, and also sum and product of the roots of a quadratic equation. The general form of a quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, where a, b, c are constants and x is the variable. Now we have three methods to solve for the roots. You could factorize the given quadratic expression, or you can use the Desmos graphing calculator, or we can also use the quadratic formula when the options are in the square root form. To calculate the roots using factorization, please consider the equation ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Now we need to find two numbers p and q such that the product is equal to the x square coefficient and the constant, and the sum of the product must be equal to b, which is the coefficient of x. Now split the middle term using these two numbers and take the common factors to simplify. For example, if we have a quadratic equation with x square coefficient as 2, the x coefficient as -5, and the constant as -12, the product AC would be -24, which could be split as -8 times 3. And the sum of -8 and 3 would be -5, which is the x coefficient. Now we can split the middle term and take the common terms out and factorize it and then equate it to 0 to get the required roots. Also, we can use the Desmos scientific calculator. You could type in the equation and look for the x-intercept of the graph in the Desmos. So if you look here again, -1.5 and 4 are the roots of the given quadratic equation. Also, to apply the quadratic formula, we need to understand that a is the coefficient of the x square term, b is the coefficient of the x term, and c is the constant. When the equation is written in the general form, ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Again, we can think of an example here. If the quadratic equation is some x square minus 3x plus 2 equal to 0. So here in this case, the coefficient of x square would simply be 1, and the coefficient of x is -3, and the constant is 2. So you could apply the formula and solve for the roots. Also, sometimes we need to check only the nature of the roots. So we don't have to really find the roots. So and we have three cases to check. So the first case is when the discriminant is greater than 0, there will be two roots. And if the discriminant b square minus 4ac equals 0, then we have only one root. And if the discriminant is less than 0, then there would be no roots. And sometimes in SAT, the question might ask simply to find one of the roots when the other root is given, and the quadratic equation is given. So you could calculate the sum of the roots by applying the formula negative of the x coefficient over x square coefficient, and the product of the roots would be the constant over x square coefficient. So if a quadratic equation is given to you, we could calculate the nature of the roots by checking the value of b square minus 4ac. Also, we can find the roots using the Desmos. And the roots, we also call them solutions or zeros. And finally, the sum of the roots and product of the roots. Now, In SAT, not only the quadratic equations would be given, sometimes you may also have to think the other way around. When the roots of a quadratic equation are given, some alpha and beta, so the roots now would be used to form the quadratic equation, which would be x minus alpha times x minus beta equals 0. After further simplification, we get x square plus sum of the roots times x plus product of the roots equals 0. Also, if it is a multiple choice question, you could substitute the root values and check for the equation to be 0, or you can put the equations in Desmos and check for the corresponding roots. We have some tips for solving quadratic equations. So the first tip would be, if one root is positive and the other root is negative, then the constant in the equation will be negative. For example, so if I have x minus 2 times x plus 3, where the roots are 2 and negative 3, after simplifying this product, the constant in the equation would be negative 6. Also, if the roots are some irrational values, one root is 2 plus root 3, then the other root would be 2 minus root 3. Sometimes we might have to simply apply this logic without any solving to find the other root. Also, we have some key ideas about the sum of two numbers, a plus b equals c. Then the product AB would be maximum when A and B values are equal to half of their sum. Suppose A plus B is 10, then the product AB maximum would be equal to 25 for A equal to 5 and B equal to 5. Again, similarly, if product of two numbers is given, suppose the product of two numbers is 10, then the sum is maximum when you split it as 1 times 10. So the sum maximum would be 11. So these are all the formulas, the points we need to think for, and also some tips when solving quadratic equations in SAT. Thank you.